You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their missions through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media.
Jenny, today's topic, the ideal campaign structure for your Google Ad Grant account. We're talking Google Ad Grants.
We love talking about Google Ad Grants. Yeah, the ideal structure, right? Think of it as the strategy for really how to set this account up and maximize this money that Google's giving you for free.
Yeah, and just setting the stage, making sure everybody's on the same page here. The Google Ad Grant is $10,000 a month in free search advertising for any nonprofit, including cultural nonprofit attractions. I think one of the big myths that we hear is, I can't use ads to sell tickets. That's not true. Anything that supports your mission, including ticketed revenue, selling premium event tickets, can be promoted and run as ads through this Google Ad Grant. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of thinking all right, for-profit attractions, or heck, any for-profit business would kill to have $120,000 a year in free advertising. So it's still kind of surprising that some institutions don't quite take full advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah, and I think even, obviously not taking advantage of the $10,000 a month is a miss for a lot. But I think even more is I see some nonprofit attractions actually spending money on paid search and not actually spending a dime on their Google Ad Grant account. Whether they can't get access to the account, whether they just don't know how to set it up, or whether they just think it's free, so it's probably no value there, right? I think it's a big miss when they're spending money in paid search and neglecting the Ad Grant account as a whole.
All right, let's get into the structure here. So we've got this is the architecture of your actual Google Ads campaign within your grant account. We've got 4 different campaigns that we're going to go through, and I'll just kind of tee you up. I'll say it first, and then you kind of tell me all about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is important because a proper structure is really what's going to help you answer that question of what is this Ad Grant account doing for me, right? So if you don't have the right structure set up, you might have some campaigns running, and you really just can't answer the question of how this is actually helping your business.
Yeah. And as we're going to kind of walk through, the idea here is how to maximize not only that $10,000 per month, but how to maximize these ads to, move the needle, sell more tickets, book events. We'll talk about it here. Okay. So our first campaign within our total architecture is our brand. And when we say brand, or a search advertising phrase is, branded search term, what is that? Define that for us.
Yeah, the brand is your name, right? So if you are the San Antonio Zoo, then your branded search term is someone who is going to Google in the search bar and typing in San Antonio Zoo. It can expand off of that, right? San Antonio Zoo tickets, San Antonio Zoo events, San Antonio Zoo weddings, whatever it is that someone's searching for, hours, right? All of those things can be captured in this kind of branded campaign.
So I'm thinking if I go to Google and I type in San Antonio Zoo, San Antonio Zoo is going to show up, and I'm going to get the organic search result for San Antonio Zoo. And in fact, Google is going to kind of expand that typical organic listing. It's going to have pictures. It's going to have maybe the hours, the phone. Why would I need to run an ad on top of San Antonio Zoo as a search?
Yeah, I think for this category, it's interesting, right? For zoos and gardens and museums, oftentimes your SEO is going to be strong because you have 2 things going for you. You're actually what you are, a zoo or a museum or a garden is probably in your name, right? And then your market is probably in your name. So again, going back to San Antonio Zoo, the market and the type of attraction that I am is in my name. That's going to be amazing for my SEO. But yeah, I think, what I would argue is that, one, this ad grant's free. So the more I can show up, the better, right? But also when you're running that ad, there's some control that you have that maybe you're not getting when an organic listing is coming up. So I'll give a few examples of that. One is just that messaging. You can do things like making sure if you've got a marquee event going on that event's actually in your ad copy. So if someone's searching in, San Antonio Zoo hours or San Antonio Zoo events or anything related to San Antonio Zoo, I can make sure that my actual ad that's showing up is talking about this brand new exhibit that we have going on, or maybe this VIP experience that we have going on, or maybe a grand opening of an exhibit, right? So those things can be incorporated into your message versus maybe just that general SEO listing that's just going to say, some basic info from your, homepage on your website. So the message is really, really important. You can also control, I think if you're running any type of Google ad in your grant or paid, that Google now allows images in that search. Google will pull images in the organic listings, but you control the images. So again, going back to like an event, if it's Christmas time, I can have my holiday lights be the image, not just a very general, generic image of my zoo or garden. So again, just more control over what's actually showing up when people are completing that search. And then I think the other thing is just kind of that real estate on the page. So if I've got an ad followed by an organic listing, right, my whole page is dominated by just my zoo or my garden, that's great. That's better. That's, I don't want anyone else to show up on that page. I want it to be my attraction.
I have on my list here that we should separate these type of search terms into a separate campaign. Walk us through that. Like why go through that extra effort?
Yeah. So branded terms are fine, but branded terms also, I think kind of what you were saying before, it's like, well, these people are already searching for you. They're going to come anyways, right? We want to still take advantage of that in our ad grant campaign, but we don't want to only run ads when someone's running or searching for our brand. So we always recommend that you create kind of a clean separation and search terms for campaigns. And that's why we say create this brand campaign, because we want to create a lot of other campaigns that are non-brand, which we'll talk about. And then what this allows you to do is just have better insight into how people are searching for related keywords. It'll allow you to have more control over how you're going to deliver certain keywords. It'll allow you to have more control over the messaging that you're going to serve within each one of these campaigns. So the general best practice, whether it is a paid campaign or an ad grant campaign, is to separate your brand and your non-brand terms. And I would say 9.9 times out of 10, when I go into, especially an ad grant account, there's no clear delineation between a branded term and a non-branded term. And so you can't really see how much of your ad grant campaign is actually driving maybe more prospecting or people who aren't just searching your attraction's name.
Okay. So maybe a suboptimal setup is San Antonio Zoo is all jumbled in with other keywords. You can't really delineate. It looks good on paper at a macro level from 30,000 feet, but you can't really dive deep into. Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's campaign number one. Campaign number two, we have location plus category. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So kind of moving into more of these non-branded searches, again, brand is just your name, but the category that you're in, zoo, garden, museum, that's not branded. So if someone's searching for your location in a zoo, and this would be really specific to someone who maybe their market's not in their name, we want to make sure we're capturing that traffic. So I think a good example of this, we're both from Central Florida. So when we think about the Orlando market, and a search that might happen is Orlando zoos or zoos in Orlando, right? There's a couple of options we have there. You've got Disney's Animal Kingdom. You've got the Central Florida Zoo in Sanford. You've got the Brevard Zoo, which is over in Melbourne, but it's still part of the Orlando DMA. So those are all three zoos that are in the Orlando market. So making sure that you're going after some terms like that are a little bit more generic, but are still someone who's looking for something related to what you offer is going to be really important. Actually, we see this in one client that we work with. Their number 2 most searched term that comes up is actually Nashville Garden, because their branded name is not actually, or their name is not their location and category, like a lot of people's names are, a lot of attractions names are. So we do see a lot of volume coming in on that term, and it's still a non-branded term, and it is still something that you should be trying to bid against and capture traffic on.
Yeah. And I know within, for attractions that would be running, maybe perhaps running a paid search campaign, you're going to kind of limit the geographic area where your ads are going to run. Just, it doesn't make sense if I'm an attraction or a garden in Texas. I don't really want my ads to show up in Washington, just a waste of money. Right. But if it's free,
if they're searching for they're in Washington and they're searching for, again, San Antonio, a zoo in San Antonio, right? That's fine if it comes up. The problem is you don't have unlimited budget. So you're going to, if you're targeting US, nationwide, you could spend a lot of money on that type of search. So when you're doing a paid search campaign for this, you might go statewide, right? But you might not have the budget to support nationwide. But yes, in your ad grant, it's absolutely free. So the more money I can spend and maximize out of this free $10,000 a month, the better. So typically, actually, standard would be I would set up every single one of my campaigns as nationwide. But yeah, so that's you don't need to limit it to a smaller radius to have more control over the dollars that you're spending.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Like, okay, geographically, we don't have to limit it, but also we could bid because once again, it's free. And I think that's going to be a common theme of this whole episode is it's free, it's free, it's free. But we could target and bid on a search term like Florida Botanical Gardens. Whereas we might not do that. I might be just like, okay, Orlando Botanical Garden. Heck, I'll go after Florida Botanical Gardens. And sure, Google's going to show me a list of all the botanical gardens in Florida, but I have the opportunity to insert my ad there saying, hey, come to my garden. It's the best. Maybe our ad copy is a little stronger than that, but
yeah. I mean, I think about this too, especially when you have like a lot of competition. Florida's got some great botanical gardens all throughout, but Florida's also from north to south can be a pretty far drive. But if you think of something like Ohio, right, where you have a great zoo in every single market, why wouldn't you want to search for or bid on terms like zoos in Ohio? Because like you're never more than 2 hours away from any zoo in Ohio, is pretty much. So especially if you're in the center of that state. So yeah, being able to go after some terms like that maybe you wouldn't always bid on in your paid account if your budgets are limited is a great strategy to take advantage of in your grant.
Ooh, and kind of piggybacking on our first point about controlling the message, controlling the ad copy, controlling the image, which you can't really do on the organic side. But okay, let's say somebody were to type in Ohio Zoo or zoos in Ohio, instead of my ad reading, let's say Columbus Zoo, my ad could read best zoo in Ohio. Right? Like we can control that message. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Number 3, weddings and private events. So this is the third campaign in the ideal Google account architecture.
Yeah. This is, I think especially on the botanical garden side, weddings are huge. They're very popular with zoos too. But also like corporate events, birthday parties, all kinds of like special and private events that you can do are something that a lot of people will come to us and ask, how do we capture more of that? And search is always where we point them. But your ad grant is something that you can have going just year round pretty much, right? So if someone is searching for, wedding venues in Nashville or wedding venues in Orlando, right? Or corporate holiday parties in Orlando, we can have ad campaigns built to serve an ad when those searches happen. I will say these are highly, highly competitive spaces. So, to think that you're going to serve like the majority of your free ad grant money against this is probably not likely, especially on the corporate event side. Weddings is a little bit higher search volume, or actually quite a bit higher search volume. So you can typically capture some decent traffic in your ad grant account against weddings. But this is something where I think it's a really great opportunity because most cultural attractions that we work with actually don't have a lot of money to support weddings and private events. It's usually like, hey, we've got a few $100 a month that we can spend, or maybe $1,000 a month we can spend. What do we do? And we say, well, let's see what we can do with the ad grant first, and then maybe we complement it with some more paid search on top of that. So yeah, we've had one particular garden that we were working with that really had just kind of skimmed their wedding support down to like online directories. And they were kind of analyzing the leads that they were getting through it. And it was like, man, these are really expensive. Are we really getting the value there? And they kind of determined internally that they weren't. And they were spending like $25,000 in like 2 directories that they were running, and which is typical cost for annual directories. And so really with the proper kind of structure that's built within the ad grant account, they were able to cut those directories, move it to the grant, actually cover, the grant's free, right? So this $25,000 that they were spending was actually replaced with the ad grant for free to be able to drive traffic to their website. And then they were able to spend just a little bit of money on top of that and some paid support just to capture some keywords that they really weren't getting in the ad grant account. And so their $25,000 annual budget and directories was, decreased by like 75%, but the value that they were getting because of the ad grant exceeded the $25,000. So there's a lot of things that you can do to take advantage of it. I think just it's constantly looking at like, what am I spending my money on now? What's really working? Can this ad grant replace it? Or can this ad grant replace maybe a portion of it to save money so I can move it into harder working tactics or channels for better support overall? So I think that was a great example. We've seen some that have had $0 in wedding support, and all of a sudden they were getting $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 of their ad grant a month going towards weddings. So just being able to go back to that weddings and events team and show them how, like, maybe your marketing team didn't actually have budget for them before, but now you can say, like, look how much we're spending against you. Look at the leads that we're driving to the site based off of this ad grant account is really powerful internally.
Love it. All right. Number 4, things to do.
I would say this is probably the main reason why people come to us and ask us to help with ad grant account or just like Google ads in general. You want to be discoverable. You want to be found. When someone's looking for an activity to do in a market, you want to come up, whether you're a garden or a zoo or a museum. So we do recommend creating some campaigns or specifically around things to do. And this can be as general as things to do in a market, things to do in Atlanta, or it can be more like kid-friendly activities in, Tucson, right? Whatever market you're in. So creating some of those are really important. Again, kind of like that weddings category, very, 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 very competitive. But this is where, kind of going back to that brand and non-brand example we were talking about, breaking these off and like excluding your brand terms. So you're truly utilizing this for prospecting for people who they don't know already that they want to come to your attraction is how we recommend setting these up. You're never going to spend $10,000 a month against them and free in the free ad grant. But if you're spending 10% of your ad grant, $1,000 a month in your ad grant on people who are searching for kid activities in my market or, kid activities near me or, family activities near me, that's amazing, right? That's free money in prospecting. So those are, with this type of structure that we're talking about, kind of building this proper structure, separating your brand and non-brand, you're going to have more insight into what's driving traffic and conversions. You're going to have more control over how you can kind of maximize this ad grant to not just spend all the money, but spend the money the way that you want it to spend. You're never going to have 100% spend on these non-branded terms, but you can spend more money against them by kind of building your structure in this way.
And just beyond like the evergreen stuff you talked about, like, kid-friendly Tucson, I think this could also work for like seasonal events too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Think about the traffic spikes, the traffic surges that you're getting in holiday period, right? Christmas lights near me, holiday activities. The travel is huge during this time. So I don't know what's going on in my neighboring markets, my drive markets, right? So being able to utilize kind of that location term that we were talking about, right? Holiday lights in Atlanta or in, Columbus, wherever you don't have to be in that market to get that ad, which is great too. But those are some great additional campaigns. You're not going to run them year long, but to heavy up kind of during holiday seasons is really important.
All right. So let's recap this here. This is the ideal campaign structure for your Google ad grants. We're going to set up 4 campaigns. 1, your brand. So San Antonio Zoo, right? Number 2, your location plus category. So we gave that example of Orlando Zoo. Number 3, weddings and private events. So, wedding venues in Tulsa. And then number 4, things to do, kid activities in Atlanta, holiday lights in Dallas. That's kind of the overarching architecture that we recommend.
You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast, conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their mission through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media. Attend Media is a media planning and buying agency specializing in zoos, aquariums, gardens, and museums. For more information, please visit attend.media. Now, back to Ryan and Jenny.
All right, Jenny. So we've been talking about selling tickets, promoting our events. What can we do with our Google Ad grants? More like mission, volunteering. Is there some area that we can expand on here?
Yeah, we always say, in the ad grant, throw the kitchen sink at it, see what works. But I think one thing that is important is recognizing that everything we kind of just walked through earlier, that structure overall is what's really going to spend the bulk of your ad grant. But there are other things that we can look at. We say scroll your site, look at that menu bar across your site. What else are you talking about on your site that you can actually try to capture some search terms for? So yes, donations is going to be a big one, right? Education oftentimes is a big one. Volunteer opportunities, kids camps. These are all tend to be definitely on a priority list, but we have to think about that search volume overall. So there's not a lot of people who are going to search where should I donate $1,000 to this month, right? That's just not really happening. If someone wants to donate money, chances are they've kind of already got a short list in their head. So there's some better things that you can do to get in front of people who are likely to make donations versus waiting until they're ready to actually spend that money. However, it's a very simple campaign to set up to be able to have more of an evergreen kind of plan together for if someone is doing a search locally and wants to know where they can donate, we want to make sure they know they can donate to us. Same with education and volunteering, very similar. I think one of the big things that we kind of run into is a lot of times we'll set up some specific campaigns for these, but because they serve so little, sometimes it could serve as little as $50 a month, right? In the ad grant. It's, sometimes it's better seen as just what Google kind of uses as or calls a site link extension. So when we think about those other kind of 4 campaigns that we were talking about that actually do deliver impressions and do deliver traffic to your site and will spend some of that ad grant money, we can pull these site link extensions into those types of ads. So a site link extension is just, think of another blue hyperlink on that ad that can drive someone to your website. So when that branded San Antonio Zoo term is coming up, I can have a site link extension for donate now or volunteer today, right? So those are some other things, some other ways to get exposure to those to potentially drive some traffic without having entire ad campaigns built out for them. But again, it just, those are all things that if you're good investing the time to build out the campaign and you're good with it just spending a few dollars a month, go for it. It's fine. But incorporating those as site link extensions is another way to do it too.
Yeah, some of these more mission-based things, get the course set up correctly and then spend some time and effort. Once you're kind of at that $10,000 a month mark, the campaign is pretty much optimized, then kind of layer on the cherry on top, if you will. And I do want to touch on a point you mentioned. This form of advertising, it's all search based, right? If nobody's searching, I want to donate $1,000, then there's no opportunity for that relative ad to show, right? And I think that also kind of plays into smaller markets. We've been talking about major metros, right? But if you're a smaller attraction, maybe we just don't have a ton of brand awareness. Maybe in combination, we're in a small market. Maybe the expectation isn't I have to spend $10,000 or this is a bust. We were just really reliant on the total amount of people we're searching relative terms for what we have to say. Yeah.
I think, there's definitely chances that you're not going to be able to spend that full $10,000 if you're in a small market. But it's still worth it, right? It's still
It's
worth
free.
Yeah, it's still worth getting some of those free dollars. So if you're going from 0 to 5,000, you should be happy, right? If you're going from 1,000 to 8,000, great, awesome, right? So it's still added support that costs you nothing other than the time to manage it.
All right. So let's talk about some situations where maybe it makes sense to invest paid advertising dollars into Google search. And I know that our POV isn't really heavy on paid search, but does paid search have a place? And if so, tell me about it.
Yeah. So yes, there's the Google Ad Grant that's free. And then there's Google Ads that is paid.
Right.
So as a nonprofit, you should be taking advantage of this $10,000 a month in free Google Ad Grant campaigns. But there is instances where paid search does make sense. There's a lot of instances where it makes sense. But I think before I talk about when it does make sense, I want to talk about what not to do with the paid search first, because I've seen a lot of nonprofit attractions either currently spending in paid search or saying, I'm ready to run paid search, but they haven't even set up their ad grant account. They haven't applied for an ad grant account. Maybe they've applied for it. Maybe they actually have it, but they're not maximizing it or really utilizing it. So maybe they're spending $1,000, $2,000 a month in it. It's just kind of on autopilot and they're really not investing time and energy into it. But they're willing to go straight into paid and spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month in paid because they just think that's what they're supposed to do. And I think this goes back to kind of what you said earlier, which is like this misconception of what an ad grant can do for you. It's not like paid is the only way to get you any good traffic. You can get really good quality traffic with an ad grant as well too. So what not to do is don't spend in brand if you're not spending a time in the ad grant, or don't spend in paid if you're not spending $1 in your ad grant. And then 2, your paid Google ad account should be an extension of your grant account. It should complement your grant account. It should not copy your grant account. One little tidbit that might be like too much here is like there's 2 separate auctions, the ad grant and the paid account. So Google's not saying like, oh, okay, they're getting like it's not all being managed together. So Google's not saying you're getting all of these branded keywords in your ad grant, so we don't need to serve it in your paid. No, it's just going to duplicate your efforts if you're going to pay to duplicate your efforts. So my number one rule, or piece of advice here is most cultural attractions do not need to spend on those branded terms, right? Your name terms, your San Antonio Zoo terms, if you're maximizing your ad grant. Or even if you're not maximizing your ad grant, go maximize your ad grant before you put the paid dollars in your paid search. But that's like one of the biggest things I see is the paid architecture tends to be built incorrectly to where it's just all kind of jumbled together and the results on paper look really good. But the reality is 90% of the keywords that are actually spending money and go in your paid account are all branded terms. So if I'm spending $1,000 a month in paid ads, and $900 a month of those are going in my branded name of San Antonio Zoo, but I'm not maximizing my ad grant yet, and then I could very easily cut every branded term from my paid account, leave $100 in my paid account, and save $900 a month and just spend more time maximizing my ad grant account. That's giving me free money here for these types of terms. So I think that's the biggest, I could talk about this all day, but that's the biggest fault that I see is people spending on branded terms and paid and not maximizing their ad grant.
Well, we've seen this, and I think the trap that maybe some attractions get into is maybe they set up their ad grant account a couple of years ago. They're going to manage that internally, right? Like somebody on the marketing team is going to do that. Like, why would I pay somebody externally to manage this? It's free, right? But then they'll have their ad agency or their marketing outside freelancing or consultant, whatever it may be, say, hey, we need to be spending money on paid search. And this is what really is going to sell tickets for us. It's got a great cost per conversion or whatever it may be. So you have two different kind of leaders or people running. One is running the free one, and one's running the paid one. And then maybe that internal marketing person who was running the grant one leaves, and maybe the grant one kind of, gets put in the closet. Nobody really looks at it. Those are kind of the scenarios where what you're talking about, I'm spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on paid search, but yet I'm neglecting my grant. And even worse, my paid search is primarily branded search terms, San Antonio Zoo. That's maybe how some of these attractions kind of fall into this trap, if you will.
Yeah. I've definitely heard why would I pay anyone to manage my ad grant account? It's free. And I think if you're not doing any paid, right, and you're just like, I just want to get our feet wet and see what we can do over here with the ad grant account, fine, like, great, that's better than doing nothing. So I don't necessarily think you have to pay someone to manage your ad grant account, but I do think if you're willing to pay someone to manage your paid account, you should have that same person manage your ad grant account, unless you just have an expert on staff who can manage your grant, in which case I would say, why are you paying someone out externally to manage your paid? So yes, you should be doing both, because I think one of the other things that happens is those branded terms are going to be bid on by the person who's managing your paid, because they have no insight into what's happening. Like if they knew that you were getting $6,000 a month of your ad grant on branded terms, they'd probably be like, I think we're good here. We don't need any more in our paid account.
Right.
But instead what's happening is they're bidding on brand. And also, like, brand is going to make your results look good on paper. Brand is going to bring down your cost per click. Brand is going to bring down your cost per conversion. Brand is going to increase your click-through rates and your conversion rates. So if I'm a third-party consultant in paid search and I'm running your ad grant or your paid account, like, I want my results to look good. And if you as the client told me, hey, remove all the brand terms, the first thing I'm going to tell you is like, well, the results aren't going to be as good. But who cares? Like, on paper, they're not going to be as good. But I want to spend, if my budget's $1,000 a month in paid Google ads, I want to spend $1,000 a month in terms I'm not able to capture in my ad grant account. I think this is just the most important thing that you can do when you're, it's the easiest way to save money in your marketing budget, I think, is with this, is just digging in a little bit more into what you're actually bidding on and buying in your paid accounts versus your grant accounts.
Well, we've seen some marketers, like, they'll spend a lot more in paid search than just a few $1,000s a month. And I think what we hear is, well, we spend money on Google search because that's what works. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, yes, on paper, of course it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it, I think when we're looking at, like, okay, well, one of our big POVs is great, but advertising should be, or at least a good portion of your advertising should be spent on people who aren't going to come anyways. And I think the person who's searching San Antonio Zoo hours or San Antonio Zoo tickets is going to come anyways, right? So again, capture that all day long with those free ad grant dollars, but you probably don't need to put the paid dollars behind that. So make sure your paid is going after those non-branded terms that are going to cost you a lot more money than your branded terms. And on paper, they're not going to look good as your branded terms, but in the long run, they're actually capturing people who may not be coming anyways.
And I'll add to this that this is probably a topic for another episode, but if we're only looking at that bottom funnel conversion, maybe there's a kind of an attribution like issue that could be going on. Like, what is the cost per ticket sale for your radio? Like, that's a really hard question to answer. So if we're just pointing at, oh, this drove me a ticket sale, perhaps there's a bigger picture problem going on versus like, oh, I understand this all has to work holistically to create that brand awareness. So somebody does type in San Antonio Zoo, we shouldn't be paying for that click. That should be happening for free.
Right.
All right. So no paid search ever. No attraction should ever be doing paid search. No. That's what you're telling us.
I'm telling you, be very, very, very in tune with what you're bidding on in your paid search, right? So most cultural attractions do not need to be paying for branded search. But I do think that most cultural attractions absolutely can be running paid search in a very strategic way, a very small amount, in a very strategic way to capture new visitors.
Give us a couple examples. Like, what would be some scenarios where an attraction should be investing in paid search?
For a lot of I like to recommend it for like if we go back to some of those non-branded search terms, especially in that things to do category. So a lot of the attractions I work with have really big holiday events, and I'm going to run some branded search. I'm sorry, some non-branded search on holiday activities in my market, right? Or holiday activities in Dallas, because I want to capture someone who has not made up their mind yet on what type of holiday events they want to go or holiday tickets they want to buy. So, and those holiday light shows tend to be one of the biggest revenue drivers of the year for a lot of the clients that I work with. So I don't want to lose people who are doing those types of searches through Google and stay away from Google, but I don't necessarily have a 12-month annual paid Google strategy for those clients. I just have some very strategic time periods where we're coming in and doing it. Another category would be with like those corporate events and weddings that we were talking about. Again, it's a very, very competitive category. And so I don't want to bid on my own brand name in those categories, but I may want to bid on weddings in outdoor wedding venues in Atlanta if I do outdoor weddings and my attraction does outdoor weddings, right? So those are some examples where you might want to add some paid dollars to it. But again, you should be doing analysis of your grant account and understanding what you're able to capture and not capture in those categories so that the paid account is supplementing it, right? It's going after what you can't get in the free grant account.
Yeah, I think we're saying 98 out of 100 times, it never makes sense for a cultural attraction to be bidding on a paid Google account on their own brand name. But just for the record, give me that 2% chance where this actually would make sense.
Yeah, I think if you're in a really, really highly competitive tourist market and you are competing with like the top attractions in that space, this can make sense. So I think just an attraction strategy overall, again, going back to the for-profits would kill for this nonprofit account. For-profits hate the fact that they have to bid on their brand as well too, but they're bidding on their brand to defend against other people who are bidding on their brand. So your major attractions and theme parks do this, right? Your Disneys and Universals and Dollywoods, right? They're all going to be bidding on their brand to just defend against other people who might bid on it, right? Our competitive conquesting. But also like third-party ticket resellers. So they don't want to lose that ticket purchase to a, Get Your Guide or Tickets or, one of those other companies. So a lot of times they'll be bidding heavy on their brand name, or maybe not heavy, but bidding on their brand name just to help ensure that they're defending that traffic. And when I think about nonprofit cultural attractions, I think of places like Georgia Aquarium and San Diego Zoo, right? They're competing in this like high level attraction space. That does likely require, I don't run their accounts. I don't know what they're bidding on, but it probably does require them to do a little bit of defense in their paid on their brand terms. So if you're in that situation, then, and again, whoever's running your paid ad account should be able to give you the strategy around like why you still need to bid on that brand term. We just don't want to see your brand term just blended into every single campaign that you're running. That's just not standard best practice for how to set up a Google ad account.
You mentioned tourist market. I think I would rather spend my money. We did a whole episode on this. Let's see, influencers as your tourist marketing plan. I'd rather spend, let me back up a second here. We know that more of this discovery, travel, leisure search is happening more on TikTok and Instagram than it is happening on Google. Not to say it's not happening on Google, but it's migrating that way.
Yeah,
so the story
industry,
is,
that search is really shifting. Yep.
Right. I'm looking for things to do in Dallas. TikTok that's where I'm going to go make that type of search. So I think the argument that we're making here is rather than spending a couple $1,000 a month on Google search to go get that type of search, I would rather spend it on influencers to show up organically on TikTok. We did a whole episode on that. But I think it fits into the argument.
If we're looking at your entire strategy overall, that's where, depending on your budget, Google search might not even come in as part of your plan, right? Because we could say You're covered with your ad grant, and we have more important, there's other channels that we need to spend this money before search. I think even a few years ago, especially just digital marketing agencies, it was search is number one for everything you do. And this just shifted over the last several years. And I think as more and more people have become in tune to what is driving that conversion, right? So is it how much money do I actually have to spend on my own brand name to drive a conversion versus how much do I have to spend in a non-brand search? And I think when you start comparing those results and seeing that someone typing in things to do in Atlanta is a $20 cost per conversion, but I can run social ads at a $7 cost per conversion. Why do I keep putting more and more money into search? It's because my branded terms are making it look really good, and I don't really want to be spending all my money there. So just, again, with everything, every single channel that we buy, we always say, you've got to look under the hood. You've got to dig in on your own account. So you have the ability to look under the hood too. But, these are just all really, really important things to be thinking of, because it's never a channel as a whole that is going to be whether or not something works or is around your plan, but it's the execution within the channel that is going to really determine that.
Ooh. All right. The 3 takeaways from this episode. Here we go. Number 1, separate your branded search terms into its own campaign, right? Whether you're running the grant campaign or you are one of those attractions that are running paid, separate your branded terms. In fact, we just made the argument you really shouldn't be running branded terms in your paid, but
you can't. But there's cases for it. But across the board, that is Google's best practices, period, anyways.
Number 2, we know that the spend on the Google ad grant is going to be reliant on the overall search volume. So smaller markets or these really kind of mission-based type of searches, we can't expect to spend all of our $10,000 on people searching for volunteer opportunities in Madison, Wisconsin. And then number 3, if you are running paid ads, maybe it's time to do an audit. Or do we have some branded terms in our paid account that can easily be moved over to our grant account so we're not spending money where we can be getting our ads for free? Jenny, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. If you have a suggestion for a topic or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit our website at marketingattractionspodcast.com.